ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, and aspiring leaders from every corner of the world. Welcome to an extraordinary conference where experience that will ignite your passion for leading in a global workforce. Today, we embark on a remarkable journey, together filled with storytelling, unexpected surprises, and opportunities to connect and learn from one another. Imagine, if you will, a captivating story. Picture yourself standing at the edge of a vast ocean, the waves crashing against the shore as you prepare to embark on an adventure like no other. You are not alone in this journey. Surrounding you are fellow explorers, each with their own unique aspirations and experiences, ready to dive into the depths of leadership on global scale. But before we set sails, let let's break the ice and get to know each other. Take a moment to introduce yourself in the chat, sharing a fun fact, a dream you have yet to fulfill. Let's create a vibrant community where ideas flow, connections form, and collaborations thrive. Now, as the stage is set, let me share a surprise element that will spark your curiosity and inspire lively dialogue through our conference at various points. During the presentation, we will unveil thought-provoking questions and challenges. These will unveil thought-provoking questions and challenges to prompt you to share your insights, engage in fruitful discussions with fellow attendees, and contribute to the collective wisdom that will emerge from our virtual gathering. But wait, there is more. As we conclude the enlightening presentation and engage in discussion, it's time to recharge and energize. We invite you to participate in a invigorating breakout activity that will rejuvenate both your mind and body. This moment of rejuvenation will leave you refreshed and ready to absorb the valuable insights that lie ahead. So, my fellow adventurers, let us embark on this extraordinary journey. Open your minds and unleash your imagination. Together, we will explore the intricacies of leading in a global workforce. As we gather here today to explore the art of leading in a diverse and interconnected world, I want to remind you that diversity is not an obstacle to overcome, but a remarkable gift to celebrate. Just like the vibrant colors of a kaleidoscope, each of us brings a unique blend of experiences, perspectives, and talents. It is within this rich mosaic that lies the true essence of our strength in global leaders. Embracing our differences doesn't mean conforming or erasing our individuality. Rather, it's a call to appreciate the diverse traits that weave the collective narrative. Without further ado, let's give a warm virtual applause as we welcome our esteemed presenter, Dr. Karen Marie Wagner Clark, to the stage. Her expertise, insights, and passion for empowering leaders in a global context will undoubtedly leave an indelible mark on our collective journey. Get ready to be inspired and challenged and transformed. Now, my fellow adventurers, let us embark on this remarkable expedition. The stage is set, the surprises await, and the conversation are about to ignite. Together, let us navigate the vast sea of global leadership, guided by inspiration and driven by our collective ambition.
You want me to start, Sajid?
Yeah, of course, we can go. I will just share the screen so you can see the presentation.
Okay.
Yeah, and so I have
Tell
to
me when you're
accept
ready.
some attendees. Yeah,
Oh, go ahead.
thank you. Okay.
This is just a wonderful knowledge exchange. That's all it is.
Yeah. So you can see the screen.
I don't see the presentation or anything. It's dark on my side, but that's okay. Oh, there you go. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, so go ahead, Sajid.
Yeah, so we will start our presentation.
So greetings from the beautiful island of Okinawa, Japan, where Sajid and I were talking early. It's 12:10 a.m. It's actually Sunday morning for me, but it's my sincere pleasure to be able to share some of my knowledge with you about leading in the global workplace. I've been studying international leadership and I teach international studies, international leadership, global leadership, and I happen to be working in a global workspace right now. So let's begin the presentation. Let me preface this knowledge share by stating that many leadership skills and relevant contexts are vital to effectively navigating the challenging global workplace. However, due to time constraints in this brief information exchange that we're sharing this afternoon, I will only highlight what I deem to be the most crucial context. So let's discuss the invisible boundaries that divides us as a collective society. Culture distorts how we see the world. It serves as a reference point to evaluate each other and other cultures. We view the world through our filters. We tend to have an ethnocentric orientation or viewpoint, that is, applying our culture or ethnicity as a frame of reference to judge others, their cultures, practices, behaviors, or beliefs, instead of using the standards of the particular culture involved. However, that perspective currently is passe. It is no longer applicable in this global landscape in which we currently reside. Evaluating other cultures according to preconceptions, stereotypes, and biases originating in the standards and customs of our own culture is not okay. Further, recognizing and accepting cultural differences are crucial to our leadership success. Consequently, as global leaders, we must have the mindset and skills to navigate cultural differences and decode cultures, behaviors, and norms that are different from our own. Why is this so crucial? Because our workplace and beyond is a subtle and sometimes treacherous terrain where people from starkly different backgrounds are expected to interact, communicate, and work harmoniously with minimal conflict. However, it can only become a reality if we have cultural awareness and build our cultural knowledge and capabilities to interact with others successfully. Therefore, the aim of this information exchange this evening is to provide practical, actionable insights to build multicultural competencies for global workplace success. Because the more we can understand the cultural context in which our colleagues and peers operate, the more we are skilled in identifying cultural differences and the more capable we are of appreciating those differences. Consequently, we will be better able to successfully manage culturally distinct norms and behaviors and lead a global workforce. Sajid, can we go to slide 2, please? So, how can we accomplish this feat? By recognizing the influence of culture on individuals, understanding the impact of deep rooted cultural values and norms, learning about our own cultural roots, discovering your own cultural profile. That is what shapes your view of the world and its people, recognizing cultural differences in others, learning how to interpret behaviors and actions in situations that you will inevitably encounter, learning how to lead in multicultural situations by recognizing and managing behavior. So, how do we go about discovering our cultural profile? By completing an assessment. Some links are provided on the slide deck and will also be offered by Sajid. There are also hyperlinks in the notes that he will share later on after the presentation. Erin Meyer, the author of the Culture Map, offers one assessment that I prefer. She developed an assessment tool for Harvard Business Review entitled it, What's Your Cultural Profile? It allows us to determine how well we understand cultural differences within the workplace. Please note that there's also another version of the Meyer assessment that will also be shared. Sajid will offer both of those cultural assessment profiles for you to be able to navigate them. So when you do that, have some fun trying out the self-assessments. After you've completed them and the results are tabulated, you'll receive a personal profile that can help you identify where cultural or individual differences may enhance or limit your potential for you to interact in a diverse world. For example, you might identify strongly as French, but do not necessarily communicate the same as many of your French colleagues. Where whether you're from Morocco, France, or Canada, French-speaking countries, the trap is assuming that you know people because you have identified their cultural pedigree. However, without understanding all the dimensions of their behavior and your own, you probably will not figure out what is behind the harmony and or the conflict or friction that you may encounter with them. Myers test will help you deepen and broaden your insights and perspectives. To that end, I must also state that individuals within a culture vary enormously in their behaviors and attitudes, and many societies have distinct subcultures, that is, varying ways of life that exist within the primary cultural paradigm. In a single society, there can be many different cultures and subcultures based on ethnic groups, religious groups, other language dialects, etc. For example, in India, Lenartowitz and Roth's cultural assessment framework identified 9 distinct subculture regions that accounted for many cultural differences, customs, religions, beliefs, and languages within that country. Another comparison we could look at is a small country like Switzerland, which has 4 national languages. As you can see, cultures and subcultures make countries and societies far from homogeneous. Slide 3, please, Sajid, where we can look at the culture map. So world countries, cultures, and subcultures differ considerably, as we all know, and are reflected in various aspects of their religious, political, and economic life. As a result, many classifications of cultural models allow us to assess a country's cultural similarities and differences. Dr. Hofstede, who is the pioneer in assessing cultural dimensions, and also Dr. Franz Trompenier and Charles Hamden Turner, who later expanded Hofstede's work to include other dimensions. They're both great models, and believe me, I reference them frequently. But my preference is Erin Meyer's model, which is another model. She's also the creator of the personal cultural assessments that I referenced earlier. Myers, with her model, identifies 8 dimensions, as you can see on the screen, on a culture map that together capture most of the differences within and among cultures and nationalities. It's a much more nuanced approach, in my view, for global business and the global workplace. The culture map allows us to view where we fall on 8 scales and offer insights into where people in countries other than ours typically land on the scale. One thing I need to say, remember, it's a sliding scale. It's not static and it's not absolute. People fall within different, countries and people fall within different ranges on those scales. I think Myers' scale is a unique classification of culture because she examines how people communicate, make decisions, lead, and approach time. But unlike other classification systems of culture, the culture map does not look at a country's religion, its political system, or its worldview aspects. With 8 scales for behavior and communication, as evident on the map that Sajid is showing, she clarifies the differences with the left-right scale framework. Let's look at the first scale, communicating in the high context versus low context dimension. In a low context culture, communication is typically quite direct. However, in a low context culture, it's usually indirect. A low context culture, as you can see, America falls on the very high end, you would say, of a low context culture. In just a few minutes, these dimensions will become much more clear. So Sajid, at this time, let's go ahead and conduct the culture dimensions comparison. For this exercise, Sajid will show you how we can look at Dr. Gert Hofstede's insights. Sajid will briefly demonstrate how to perform a comparison. And then after that, we'll
Yeah.
continue on with the presentation. We'll go to slide 4, Sajid.
Yeah, so thank you for your valuable insights, Dr. Karen. And then I will send you, after the presentation, I will send you these PDF documents, and then you can go to the slide 4. For so Okay, I will reshare the screen. Just 1 minute.
No worries.
Yeah, so you can go to slide 4 and then click on this link on slide 4. So Hofstede Insights. It will guide you to to the official website to see the comparison tools. So here in the research, we will type country comparison tool, and then it's our first result. Yeah. Then it's so easy. In a few seconds, we can find many countries in comparison, many comparison countries. So for example, we will type Morocco, and for example, with United States. So here we found in a few seconds two comparison countries, and then we can just scroll down and see the chart switched between the dimensions descriptions. Then we can see the power distance about the country comparison, and then last but not least, we can see the source of country scores. So it's just that easy. We can type, like, we can add another country, for example, Tunisia. So we can type what countries we need to compare and see how comparisons are and how the results. So this is how simple it is, and in a few seconds you can get your comparison. So we're going back to our presentation.
So thanks, Sajid. It's a very useful tool. I use those cultural dimensions and country assessments very frequently because that advises me of what my expectations should be based on the cultural dimensions, how people will interact and react, and how they're going to behave. It's just a great tool to understand cultural dimensions. So let's briefly look on slide 4. You have that up, right, Sajid? Let's look at the first two dimensions based on what the Morocco and United States comparison that Sajid did. So let's look at the power distance and the collectivism versus individualism context on there. So power distance index, that describes the extent to which the less powerful members of an organization expect and accept that power is equally distributed. As you can see, Morocco is out 70 out of 100, which is pretty high on the power distance index. The United States is 40 out of 100, which is pretty low. So with a score of 70, Morocco is viewed as a hierarchical society, excuse me. It means a people accept a hierarchical order in which everybody has a place in ranking and needs no further justification. Hierarchy in an organization reflects inherent inequalities. Centralization is popular, subordinates expect directives, what to do, and the leadership style in those type of societies tend to be more autocratic. Also, personal relationships are highly valued in a business culture. Although there's a certain degree of inequality in all societies, I want to make that clear. There's relatively more equality in some cultures than in others, such as in the United States. Meanwhile, societies with low power distance seek to have an equal distribution of power. The implications is that cultures endorse and expect relations that are much more consultative, democratic, or egalitarian. Also, personal relationships are not highly valued in a business culture. Here's a perfect example to explain to you in layman's term the power distance index. In a high power distance culture, such as Morocco or Japan, employees would never dream of barging into a CEO's office and complaining about an issue. They typically go through the rank and file and will go through the immediate supervisor only. That's typically how it's here in Japan. If there's an issue, the Japanese nationals will only go to the immediate supervisor and stop. They would expect the immediate supervisor to take whatever actions that are necessary. It is quite the opposite in a low power distance culture like the United States. Employees will barge directly into the top boss's office, the owner of the company, without a second thought. And so you could see there's clearly quite a difference in cultural dimensions there. Then in collectivism versus individualism, as you can See, Morocco is 46 out of 100, which is pretty low. United States is 91 out of 100, which is pretty high. So individualism and collectivism respectively refers to the integration of individuals into groups. I am a US national, but I was born and raised in a country in Central America. So I am from a collectivistic culture, but have adapted kind of in the individualistic way of life because my husband and I have been living in the United States since we were 15 years old. So individualistic societies stress achievement and individual rights, focusing on the needs of self, not the needs of group and others. A person's self-image in this category is identified as I. In contrast, collectivistic societies place greater importance on the goals and well-being of the group, with a person's self-image in this category being identified as we. Those from collectivistic cultures tend to emphasize relationships and loyalty more than those from individualistic cultures. Lastly, communicating tends to be more direct in individualistic societies, but indirect in collectivistic ones. This leads me to the following context, which is the interplay of communication. Communication patterns. A crucial leadership skill is paying attention to the stimulus set by communication features. Looking at Myers' map that we saw earlier and viewing the low context versus high context dimensions, the impact of communication on the effectiveness of intercultural teamwork becomes quite apparent. In high context cultures, the message is defined by implicit knowledge and dealing with different styles is decisive. Perfect example would be Morocco or Japan. For example, as a high context culture, people from Japan value the message and the context more than the actual words alone. Also, they use a lot of nonverbal cues, silence, nods, hand gestures, and facial expressions to convey meaning. In low context cultures, on the other hand, examples would be Germany or the US, the message's meaning is mainly defined by explicit knowledge and verbal information. As a result, nonverbal communication is typically not prevalent in those cultures. Another thing that we need to be very cognizant of when we're talking about communication are thought patterns. Deductive methods, which is typically a US approach, we tend to go from broad categories to specific examples to determine the facts and then offer solutions to a problem. Inductive method, which is typically an Asian and African type approach, is usually starting with the facts and then moving towards generalizations. Thought patterns also include the pace or speed of solving problems and making decisions. So let me share a quick story relative to the differences in communication and thought patterns. And the story is a little bit older, but I think it's so germane in what we're talking about today. I want to talk about a Toyota story that occurred. So after being subpoenaed, Akio Toyoda, the CEO and president of Toyota Motors, and other company executives faced the U.S. House Congressional Committee on Capitol Hill. I believe it was back in 2010. They were summoned to explain problems with its vehicle, the company's vehicle accelerators that may have caused the death of 19 consumers. This safety issue ultimately triggered the recall of more than 10 million Toyota vehicles nationwide, global-wide. Toyoda, who has an MBA from an American university and once worked in California, when he was summoned and went before the House committee, he used a translator to avoid any misunderstandings at the hearing, but often seems sometimes to be lost in a cultural gap between the United States and Japan. It was very challenging for him. So during the 3-hour grilling that ensued, some lawmakers tend to get really irritated with the responses that Mr. Toyoda was giving. They were seeking short and simple responses from Mr. Toyoda. However, he kept referring back to the notes he had in Japanese because it was challenging to give short and simple answers because Toyota Motor Corporation at the time had not yet determined what had caused the issue with the acceleration pedal and the brake issues. So Akio Toyoda was not about to generalize and just give a non-factual response when he was being grilled by the congressman. They wanted an answer. But the Japanese do not operate with a deductive method. They use the inductive method approach where they start with facts and not generalization. So, as the CEO, he was not about to just give a general response. He was waiting for the facts from the mechanical engineers who were assessing the acceleration issues, which were not yet determined. So, you can see the cultural differences there were very clear. And this is no slight on Americans because I'm a nationalized American, but in the culture of the United States, if there's an issue, executives from companies will tend to go on center stage very rapidly without knowing the underlying story, the root cause, and offer some sort of explanation up front, and then will maybe later on have to backtrack once the root cause has been discovered. However, in other cultures, for example, the Japanese cultures, they do not operate that way. They start with the facts and then they generalize, and that was the issue with Mr. Toyoda. So I remember CEO Toyoda had a stoic showing in Congress. His face was pale, his expression was stiff. He apologized in his speech later on, he delivered in English, but you could see he was well shook because he didn't even make his traditional Japanese bow style that he always does. So after hearing the press conference, Toyoda broke out in tears. He had lost face in front of his colleagues and, in essence, in the entire world that had he had been on this stage at the US Congress and having to be grilled with questions that he could not answer because he did not have the answers yet. So remember, the Japanese are all about the quality also, and they use the Kaizen philosophy of total quality management and continuous improvement. So this was another shame for Mr. Toyoda. Additionally, the Toyota Motor Company bears his family name. Mr. Aiko Toyoda is the grandson of Toyota Motor Corporation founder Kichiro Toyoda. I remember being so flabbergasted after the US congressman did not take the time, I felt, in my opinion, to learn about the cultural norms of the Japanese. They were more concerned about bringing Mr. Toyoda to the United States, subpoena him on short notice and grilling him, as opposed to taking the time, giving the time and respect for him to figure out, or the Toyota Motor Company to figure out what had occurred before he was sanctioned to go to the United States. But I viewed it as an embarrassment and a stain on the United States Congressional Committee during that time. I really, truly did. So let's now jump into paralanguage. Paralanguage is another critical piece that you need to understand. It's the non-lexicon component of oral communication. For example, the intonation, the intensity, the volume, or voice pitch, speed of speaking, gestures, vocal segregates, and facial expressions. It is vital to know what's acceptable in certain cultures. In the Japanese, everything is quiet, it's low. In my neighborhood where I'm at, literally you can hear a pin drop because people are just, the voice tones and the whole lifestyle is extremely quiet, unlike some loud Americans. Another thing is proxemics, communicating using space. Be aware of the physical distance between people when you're interacting, people from other cultures, as well as their territorial area. It is the greatest influence. It is strongly influenced, I apologize. It is strongly influenced by our culture. For example, people from the United States require the greatest distance in our social zone. It is approximately 4 to 12 feet. That is a zone for most business situations where people interact more formally and interpersonally. Do you ever interact with someone and you feel like they've stepped up too close to you? I know I have. In India, I think they have the smallest social zone space. So typically when I'm speaking to my colleagues from India, when they come up really close, unknowingly, I tend to back up to regain that social space because I have learned as a naturalized American that I need that 4 to 12 feet that makes me feel comfortable. So that's exactly what proxemics is. So the last couple things, oculesics, that's eye contact in the United States and other countries such as Canada, Great Britain and Eastern Europe. Eye contact is considered a sign of respect and attentiveness. However, in other countries, example Japan, where there's little or no direct eye contact, when you make the direct eye contact, it could be misinterpreted as aggressive or intrusive, when the intended meeting might be merely to appear interested if you're used to making direct eye contact. Haptics is another one. The haptics is touch, communicating using bodily contact. It is wise to know if handshakes, pat on the backs, kisses on the cheeks are acceptable. For example, touching should never occur in Japan. No handshakes are given unless initiated by the other party. The common courtesy in Japan is a bow. That's it. Chronemics, the role of time in communication. It is the different attitude towards time which vary vastly from culture to culture. Across cultures, people usually have different perceptions and values placed on time, which plays a considerable role in the communication process and can result in conflicts between individuals. For example, time is relatively linear in the United States and Japan, while it's flexible in other countries such as Latin American countries and some Central and South American countries. Time perception includes punctuality, interactions, and willingness to wait. So let me share a quick story before I wrap this up. A quick story on proxemics and the value, the time perception and value placed on time. So in the United States, time is considered money. Most American businessmen want to hit the ground running when they go to a foreign country and meeting with the nationals. So I was working for this company a while back, and we were going to Brazil. We had the potential for a multi-million-dollar contract. So I was flying there as a support to the CEO of the company, CEO and founder of the company, his son, and we were traveling to Brazil. Like I said, we had the potential for this multi-million-dollar contract. And the reason he selected me to accompany his son is because he knew that I was relatively familiar with the cultural dynamics of Latin America and Brazil and those areas. So I remember on the plane telling him that we have to be careful how we interact because time is not considered money in those countries. It's more about fostering a relationship. You'll be invited to the home for dinner and then build that relationship. It might take 2 days before we actually get to the business dynamics. I remember clearly stating that fact on the plane. And he was like, yeah, well, we'll go. We'll see what happens. Well, we got there and he hit the ground running. He wanted to conduct business within probably about 2 hours after we had met with the executives from the company. And that just does not work in the Brazilian culture as a whole. And because of that, to cut a long story short, we ended up losing a multi-million-dollar contract that could have been very beneficial to the company and could have been very resourceful and could have been saved if I felt that he had just taken the advice that I had given him about how a country like Brazil, typically the businessmen operate. So just be cognizant of all those different things that I shared, because those are all part of cultural dimensions. And I want to say that a lot of companies across the globe lose billions of dollars, and that's not millions, billions with a B, because of not understanding cultural dynamics and actually, in essence, insulting nationals from different countries. So please just be cognizant of that fact. So in closing, what I want to say is remember that many intercultural encounters happen on short notice, leaving little time to learn about the other culture. So cultural awareness and knowledge are the keys to successfully leading in a global workplace. Cultural differences lead to stereotypes and biases. Therefore, we tend to put individuals in boxes with general traits. However, with newfound cultural knowledge, we can stop viewing others through our cultural lens and begin to view people as individuals, not just products of their culture, beliefs, and norms. Thank you for listening.
Karen. The insights was very valuable, and it was very enlightening session we've had on how to lead in a global workplace. So, and this was with our esteemed Dr. Karen. Her insights have undoubtedly sparked our curiosity and left us eager to delve deeper and deeper again into the topic. And now it's the time to the transition. We will have a Q&A session. So I encourage each of you to take a moment to gather your thoughts and questions, whether you prefer expressing yourself in French, in Arabic, in English. Please feel free to type your questions in the chat. I will be your conduit, so I will be reading them, and Dr. Karen will graciously provide her expertise and valuable insights. Yeah.
And Sajid, while we're waiting, if I could just say, I know speaking about cultural dimensions and our differences, and not so much our similarities, are relatively uncomfortable for people. I am not sure why, because speaking about cultural differences to me is just a journey of learning and knowledge. I love to find out how we're different, how we're similar, because to me, I always approach another culture as just a learning experience. And I know when I speak to a lot of my colleagues, they feel relatively uncomfortable speaking about cultural dimensions. I am not certain why, because it is the reality and it's something that we need to be very cognizant of.
Mhm. I have more of a comment, Dr. Wagner. There's this echo. Not sure if Rashid, can you put yourself on mute? It sounds like it's coming from there. I have mostly a comment. First of all, your content was very good and timely. You guys hear the echo as well? Okay.
I did, and
So
I think someone has their mic on. Someone has
yes,
their
if you can all
microphone.
mute, it would help without the echo. It's definitely much better. So I work for an international company, a global company, and ahead of the Americas. So I definitely could relate to your comment about Brazil because we have a big office in Brazil and in South America in general. And what I was putting in the comment is in those countries, they want to get this trust from you, and you build this trust by having small talk. How's your family? Things like that. I think in Asia, in APAC, those are more taboo, right? You don't really talk about family, personal stuff. You get maybe more straighter to the business. But in Latin America, they need that trust. They need to be able to open to you. And by doing this small talk, it really opens up, and actually you're more successful in doing negotiation by actually taking the time to really get to know the people. And once you get to know the people, then the message get conveyed much easier than going straight to business. They don't really like that kind of straightforward, in your face approach like in the Americas we have, right? Because I live in the United States and I have, North African origins, and my area is the Americas. So there's a huge difference between North America, how we operate, in South America, how they like to be engaged. So I totally relate to what you said, and those were real facts that I live every day, by connecting with different people from different cultures and background. So thank you. I think it was a good refresher for me, and a good awareness, because I don't deal with APAC as much, the Asian market as much. So I know things are way different there. So I think when I do have to engage with people in Asia, I'll probably need to do my homework and maybe look at your tools. But yeah, it's again, you approach people in different ways depending on the culture and environment you are in, versus pushing your own culture onto them. You actually need to adapt to their culture so that the message is conveyed much easier, smoother. And again, building that trust is essential. So that's my comment. And thank you, Dr.
All
Wagner.
about
This was great.
relationship building. I 100% agree with you. And sometimes in Latin America, depending if there are two executives meeting, sometimes it takes the one executive from the country, like say for example Brazil, will invite the other executive to their home, break bread, have a meal. These could take a couple of days before they even get to discussing the business. It's relatively similar in Japan with top executives. It's all about relationship building before you even start talking about business. The difference in Japan, and don't laugh, with the relationship building occurs in during the 9 to 5 or 8 to 4 work hours, because after hours, that's when we hit the karaoke bar and all everything lets loose in there. It's such a strange dichotomy because it's all business and the hierarchical structure during the day. You don't step through the rank and file, but it comes the evening. Everybody goes to the karaoke bar. The beer bottles are open, or the soju or whatever they're, and then the whole holes are barred at that time.
I
It's
had
very
no
different.
idea. I thought we were more rigid and more like, again, very focused on business. I didn't know after hours they completely changed.
It is till about 5 or 6 o'clock, and then it's everything is off the table. It's very different.
Thank you for sharing that.
Sure, you're welcome.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Karen, for sharing these invaluable information. And we have a comment from Raja. She said, "Thank you. It was very informative." And also we have a comment from Patricia. Very interesting presentation to better understand each other in a global world. Thank you. Thank you, Mrs. Patricia. And then we have another comment. Thank you. It was extremely clear. As a citizen from high context culture, which is Morocco, can we cope up quickly to cultural differences, or it could be really acquired only by interacting with other people from other cultures and learning every day from our mistakes?
Yes, I would like to thanks for this presentation because it's very interesting. I am in the WIN global environments, and sometimes it's very difficult to understand the reactions of the people. For example, the Latin America are very kindness and very the emails are very kind, and when you receive an email from the North America, it's very direct, and there are no very precise. So for the young people, it's very difficult to understand that and to have the good reaction, because for the European people, it's very difficult to receive a so direct message and to understand very rapidly and very clearly as they want. So thank you very much, because I remember it was during a scientific conference with the Japanese, and the PhD present as the presentations and different questions from the different people, and I was very surprised because the PhD turned to his director, and the director turned to the and like that we go to the director of the firms, and the response was made by the director and not by the PhD. So for the it's very funny too, but it's very instructive to understand how the other people react. And yes, it's very, very, very interesting for us. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I just really love studying the different cultures, and I am a voracious reader anyway. One of those books, and Sajid will share it, is actually The Culture Map by Dr. Erin Meyer. Is just wonderful.
But it's possible to buy your book or to choose.
No, I didn't write this. This is by Dr. Erin Meyer. I believe she's from Stanford. And then another one is Managing Across Cultures. Both books, because Sajid will share all the slides, and he will also share all the talking points that I had. I shared them with him yesterday. And so all the attendees will have all that, so you can use the resources. And hyperlinks are included in the talking points and also in the slide deck. So for the different cultural dimensions, comparison tools that you can use, Dr. Husted's, Dr. Champenier, and Hamden Turner, and also Dr. Meyer's cultural dimensional tools. They all share different aspects, because I like Dr. Husted's for some reasons, but then I like the Fons, Champenier, and Hamden for other reasons, because they have different dimensions. And so collectively, you have such a global view of everything, and you can use the dimensions accordingly.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Yeah, I will
Sajid?
definitely share with all our attendees and our honor guests the documents and the talking points, and then I will just come back to a question from Raja. She said the question is for Dr. Karen. So she said, thank you. It was very extremely clear. As a citizen from high context culture, which is Morocco, can we cope up quickly to cultural differences, or it could be really acquired only by interacting with other people from other cultures and learning every day our mistakes? So this was the question from Rajat bin Naim.
I think you can learn how and increase your knowledge base by doing the cultural dimensions and looking at the cultural comparisons between the different countries. But of course, the hands-on experience is the real experience. So by interacting, so when you meet people from other cultures, my suggestion would be foster a relationship with them. Be curious, ask questions. People are more than willing to share, and just ask poignant questions. Ask them, how they typically interact once you foster that relationship, of course. And because people are more than willing to share what their cultural norms and their values are. Most people are extremely proud of what their cultural values and cultural norms are. I know I most certainly am. Even as a naturalized American, I am very proud of my Latin American roots, most definitely.
Yeah. Thank you
I
for
feel the
your
same
answer,
way.
Doctor.
I feel the same way about being proud of your culture. I actually was born and raised in France, but my parents' culture, Moroccan and Algerian, I'm extremely proud of. And I live in the United States, so I always say I'm a citizen of the world. We all are, right? We all part of this world we live in. We have maybe some cultural influences, but we all in this planet to work together and stuff like that. So, but yeah, the sense of being proud of your culture is definitely apparent when you talk to people. So you need to really, in addition to engaging and asking questions, just know the bare minimum, right? Just like you said, right? The space. You got to know about the space, right? Because if you don't, then they will not be open to talk to you because you didn't respect that space. Things like that, just like the minimum information to know before you engage with someone from a different culture, especially if you really want to achieve something in business. Just know a little bit more as well before you engage. But yeah, I'm with you about being proud of your culture and holding this flag. I actually have my 2 flags here at all time.
Waving it. Also, Sajid, for the last question we had, I thought about it. Also, it helps to step outside of your little comfort zone in your space and meeting new people. How I learned about the Japanese culture before I even came to Japan, that was years ago, and because I've traveled back and forth to Japan before actually living here, I watched a lot of Japanese movies with the subtitles and different things like that, reading about different cultures. There are so many resources available on the internet. You can actually pull up cultural norms about Japan. You don't even have to do the country comparison. Pull up the cultural norms, and people write blogs, and sometimes they're great long PDFs of everything you do, how you slurp your soup, how you eat your noodles. They literally have them item line by line by line by line. So I would recommend to the who had the question, that would be a great way to do it, because some people live in communities that are very close knit and very much homogenic sort of way, not heterogenic, very close knit community, but maybe just a community of Muslims. There's nothing wrong with that. But stepping outside and learning about other cultures, if you want to, let the internet be your source. And let this presentation and the resources that we share be your source, and watch great movies. There are some great Korean and Japanese movies. As a matter of fact, when I'm finished, I'm kind of wound up right now. I'm not going straight to sleep. I'm gonna go watch a K-drama. Sajid laughs because I watch K-drama all the time.
Yeah. So thank you for your insights. I have a few. I have two more questions. So one from okay, one from Wiam. She said that I appreciate the time and the efforts you put into your presentation, leading in a global workforce. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with us. So my question is, how can I discover my cultural profile?
Assessments that to discover your cultural profile, Sajid, with the slide deck, there are hyperlinks in there, and they're also in the notes that he is going to share. There are hyperlinks, and they take you straight to, I think, the two of the best cultural profile assessments. And after you're finished taking them, you will get a PDF or printout. And just what I do have to say is be extremely honest when you're answering those cultural profiles. I remember back in graduate school, we did it, and we did it as a group. And we were supposed to share our cultural profile after we got the results. And I was actually kind of shocked. We were kind of shocked, some of the results that came back, because it indicated how small-minded we were in some areas and extremely broad-minded in others. But it's kind of a little bit of an awakening, and it's a definitely a learning journey. But that's how you would assess your cultural profile. And of course, learning about your cultural roots, just that would take some internet, some research, asking your parents, your grandparents, and finding out why you believe the things you believe, why you feel about other people the way you feel. There's nothing wrong about it. There's nothing wrong about that. So don't take it as a negative, but it's the journey of learning and understanding. Look at it like that. And then you'll be more apt and open to learning about other people and discovering your cultural profile. What shapes why you think the way you think, and what you do.
Yeah.
Hope that
Thank you,
answers.
Dr. Karen. Yeah. Thank you, Doctor. So next comment I have from Miss Ala. She said that thank you so much. This is very powerful and useful. I am so grateful. Thank you. So I have another comment from Benhaz. She said that thank you. I was really awesome. It was really awesome and informative presentation. Growing in a conservative culture in Iran, which have hold us, especially women, back in running international businesses. Such insights were really useful. Hope to hear from you more and more. Thanks, Sajid, for inviting me to the meeting. Yeah, you're welcome. I have another comment from Rashida Bodinier. Thank you very much, and it was very interesting presentation. From Raja, now I appreciate all your responses and pieces of advice. Thanks. And I have a few other comments now from Kotba. She says, thank you for the very insightful presentation. As Dr. Wagner Clegg started, empathy and positive curiosity are very important traits when navigating international. The result is often a beautiful mesh of all positive aspects of different cultures. And I have another comment from Yusra Afifi. She said that thank you for your valuable contribution. It was actually very insightful. My question is, how can we, as students, develop this global mindset and cultural intelligence to navigate diverse business environments?
My suggestion would be to read books about managing across cultures, the culture map by Dr. Erin Meyer. there are several books out there, and they're actually free PDFs. Sajid and I were just talking about this yesterday. There are actually quite a few free PDFs and free reads that you can download from the internet. You don't have to purchase these books. Project Gutenberg has a lot of free books on the internet that you don't have to pay for, and they're actually available. I found out about them when I was an undergrad student, I believe. So I use Project Gutenberg a lot for resources. Use your school's library. You can also have access. Sometimes you can borrow the books, the physical books. Sometimes you can use them as ebooks, and sometimes you get them and use them for only a short space of time. You can't keep them and return them electronically also, as opposed to the physical copy, whichever you want. But I say let the internet be your friend, because that's where you're going to learn a lot about cultural differences, most certainly.
Yeah, exactly. So I have another two comments from Rita. What are your favorite questions to bond faster with somebody? Yeah.
That's an interesting one. My favorite question. What's your favorite pastime? I like to ask people when I first meet them. I think I did ask you that, Sajid. What's your favorite pastime? And then I share what my favorite pastime is. That's kind of a nice icebreaker, because people will share sometimes surprising answers what their favorite pastime is. I think when Sajid and I first met and I had the discussion and I told him my guilty pleasure is K-dramas, he was actually laughing. I don't think he expected that response from me. I think he probably thought I was going to say some sort of historical movies and stuff, which I do like those. And I am just a lover of classic literature and British films. But my guilty pleasure is actually K-drama. So that's a nice icebreaker. What's your favorite pastime? And then you can also ask people, what are your favorite foods? What are your favorite restaurants? And then that kind of breaks the ice. And then you start asking them other questions. You talk about different things, but not only ask questions, you have to share about yourself too, because then that opens the dialogue where it's a give and take dialogue. It's a sharing. It becomes a communication exchange, as opposed to you just poignantly asking questions, because sometimes that can be a little bit off-putting for people, because you're just asking questions, and you're not sharing anything from your end. So let it be a wonderful communication exchange, and that usually starts to foster a great relationship. You're mute. I can't hear you, Sajid.
Sorry. I have another comment from Hasna. She said, um, thank you for this presentation. Is placing a great emphasis on understanding cultural differences the only thing that allows us to lead in a global workplace? So this was his question. Should I read it once again?
Please, because you were breaking up.
Yeah, okay. So is placing a great emphasis on understanding cultural differences the only thing that allows us to lead in a global workplace?
Absolutely not. There are a lot of other factors, but of course, with this 20-minute communication exchange, that's all I opted to share. But with the resources that you have, that Sajid is going to share, you're going to see a lot more context that are relevant. I don't want to say much more relevant, but are also relevant, leading in an understanding cultural context and leading in a global workplace. I just felt communication is the key to everything. And so that's why I dealt with the communication portion of it. But there are so many different things. There's so many different things from an HR perspective you need to understand leading in a global workplace. But that's a whole different element, which I'm actually very knowledgeable on, but way beyond the scope of this presentation that we were going to do. So let me enhance that just a little bit more. biannually, I give a talk to Georgetown students. I graduated from Georgetown with a master's on a while back, but I give talks about leading the global workforce. In that perspective, though, I share more of the HR side about the labor laws and knowing the differences with different labor laws, because even though nationals from other countries will be working, say in the US, or people from the US will be working in, say, your country in Morocco, there are certain labor laws that still would be relevant to them, even though they're working in a foreign country. Those transnationality laws and different things. So, but that's from, like I said, a whole different perspective. There's so much to learn and know about leading a global workforce. These were just the germane contents that I thought that you should know in this very brief information exchange. I could go on for years. Ask Sajid. He talked for hours sometimes about this stuff.
Yeah. We have another comment from Saharita. She or he said, "Thanks, Dr. Wagner-Clark, a bunch for your presentation. It was informative and interesting." Yeah, thank you. Another comment from Sana. She says, "Currently, I am actively working on enhancing my leadership skills, so this presentation is perfectly timed and it was very powerful and clear. Thank you for your invitation, Sajid." Yeah, you're welcome. Another two last comments we have. "Thank you so much," from Shema. "Thank you so much. This beautiful flower is for you." I really appreciate your ways of speaking and your ideas. It's very important, this kind of subjects that grow in our mindset and giving us ideas about other cultures. Thank you so much, dear Sajid. I hope to see you soon, Mrs. Karen, and welcome to you in Morocco. Yeah.
You.
Another comment from Aisha Janan. She said, "Thank you for the fruitful content and engagement." Yeah.
And so, if thanks for the comments and thanks for all the warm, pleasant exchanges and the compliments that you gave me. If I could just end in saying this, Sajid, before we depart, view learning about other cultures like just an adventure. And when you do it like that, it just becomes fun because you want to learn, how do other people do things? How do they say things? How do they interact? And just like Aisha was talking about, that distance, that different, the space that's required, or social zones, it's very interesting. And it's funny because I remember years ago when I was teaching face to face at the university I currently teach at, we had an influx of Indian nationals because a university they used to attend had lost its accreditation and they came to our university.
Karen?
Sajid, I think you intentionally cut me off because you didn't want to hear my story. No, I'm just kidding.
And no, it's just not like that. So, in the meantime, we missed a comment from Raja. It's the last one. She says, "Doctor, it is okay to ask people from other countries about their culture, but of course in a gentle way. And again, many thanks to you all for this fruitful presentation." Yeah, so thank you. We really appreciate your positive feedbacks. And then it was really an incredible journey we've had with today in exploring how to lead in a global workforce, how to lead in a global workplace. And Dr. Karen Murray has ignited with our minds with her outstanding presentations, unraveling the influential power of culture, deep-rooted values, diverse cultural profiles, and the art of interpreting behaviors in multicultural settings. So, but our journey doesn't end here, of course. We believe in continuous growth in skills enhancement, and to further develop this expertise, we invite you to join us on Slack. We will send you after the conference ends a Slack invitation where you can participate in a series of thought-provoking questions about managing diversity. And I think there is more. There is 13 questions about diversity and managing diversity, and you can feel free to collaborate in groups or tackle them
Yeah,
individually, yeah, you can definitely do that. So remember, you can also reach out to Dr. Karen or Mrs. Aisha or every guest of honor we had today. And you have seen you have 7 hours to submit these answers, and it's very optional, so it's entirely optional, so just be yourself and let your unique perspective shine. And furthermore, a comprehensive PDF guide will be sent to you once we conclude the conference, ensuring that you have a valuable resource to refer back to. And we extend our heartfelt gratitude to each and every one of you for attending today's event. Your presence and active participation have made this experience truly remarkable. And stay tuned for our upcoming conferences in each month, where we will continue to unravel new horizons and inspire further growth. Until then, keep embracing diversity and leading with passion and shaping a better world. Thank you, thank you, and I invite you to join us again in the future and bring along your colleagues, friends, and classmates. So stay tuned and be part of our growing community dedicated to advancing leadership and future skills. So thank you once again for your active participation, and wishing you continued success in your leadership journey. Yeah, thank you.
So Sajid, they can follow me on LinkedIn, because I write all the time. I'm always writing about different global perspectives and different workforces, leadership. I write a lot on LinkedIn, so you can follow. I do give research.
You can. I will.
Content, academic content.
Yeah, I think in the next email I will also share the LinkedIn profile of Dr. Karen. And then also we have Facebook page, LinkedIn page, and we will start sharing our content in a YouTube channel. So feel free to look for Meet the Leader in these 3 platforms, and have a great evening, and thank you for all being there. Yeah, thank you.